Good afternoon, everyone. Sorry for the late start. We had to wake up the computer. It was tired. It's a Tuesday. It's Tired Tuesday for the computers. Today, I am going to be talking about some operational aspects of AI and walking through sort of different elements of the research life cycle that we use AI in, and providing some examples, pointing to IU resources, etc. So that's going to be an important part of the talk. In addition, since AI is such a rapidly moving topic area, hang on just a second. There we go. Since AI is a rapidly moving topic area, I want to start by giving some updates about where we are with AI, because this stuff moves fast. And I want to give you some context into what's happening, because that implies what some of the features and functionalities are going to be, what we can do with AI moving forward. And then I'm going to talk about AI and research with that context in place. So we're going to do what's new, and then we're going to do how does that apply to and what can we do with AI and research. So first of all, just my slide showing that we're making significant progress. This slide seems to become truer and truer every time I give this presentation. We've been in a period akin to the Industrial Revolution now for a couple of years, and we're starting to feel some changes occurring. Things like people becoming concerned about losing their jobs as a software developer, or people beginning to rely on AI for various tasks like helping drafting and writing content. But we're increasingly, I bet there's very few people on this call who don't use AI at least once a day, and that's becoming more and more common. I start by always grounding us. Remember, at its core, what we're talking about still, and this may change soon, but what we're talking about with these large language models, these neural networks, is predicting the next word. So, if we have input text like, these aren't the droids you're looking, what's the next word? So you can tokenize that. I'm not going to go into the details, but fundamentally what happens is that text is turned into numbers, a series of numbers that the AI understands, and it puts it into its neural network, which is really just a big matrix for you mathematics fans. And it looks through the various vectors or columns in the matrix to find the most probable word based on its understanding of language. And so it looks through all of those tokens, looks for the probabilities. And here in this list, we see in this vector, we see that 4 is the highest probability word. So we take that word and we decode it from a number back into a word, and we add it to the next, and then we go on from there. So that's at its core what this AI is doing. But that function, turns out, has what we call emergent properties. AI seems to behave, it learns to behave because humans do this. It learns to, it understands what being sarcastic is. It understands what being funny is. You can tell AI to behave in these ways. And some people consider those emergent behaviors, meaning you didn't expect that just predicting the next word leads to these types of capabilities. But we're starting to see more emergent capabilities come out as well. Again, just because I'm a math geek and I think this stuff is cool, I always like looking for good explanations for how and what this AI is doing. So if any of you, I think it's 3 brown and 1 blue, or 1 blue, 3 brown, there is an awesome video that I think gives you another perspective into how this stuff works. I hope the sound comes through. Let's see. It's not.
Germany. This came up in a full video that I did dissecting what happens inside large language models. You see, when tools like ChatGPT process text, the first thing they do is subdivide it into little pieces, and they associate each piece with a large vector, some long list of numbers. This is called an embedding of that piece of text, and it's helpful to imagine these embedding vectors as directions in some very high-dimensional space, even if we struggle to concretely visualize anything more than 3 dimensions. Models that learn to embed words as vectors like this often encode meaning into the directions of this high-dimensional space. If you take the difference between the embeddings of man and woman, and you add that to the embedding of uncle, you get a vector very close to the embedding of aunt. If you take the embedding of Italy minus Germany, and you add it to the embedding of Hitler, you get something very close to the embedding of Mussolini. It's as if the model learned to associate some directions in this high-dimensional space with Italianness, and others with World War II Axis leaders.
So that is intended to give you just an intuition about what AI is doing. Essentially, these words are pointing off into all sorts of directions in this high dimensional space. And so you can do things like king plus woman points to queen. So you can actually, they've done some of these experiments to show how these words tend to cluster in mathematical ways. So another one of my slides, this is one of the ways that I keep up on what's happening with AI. How are they doing on the old IQ test? Remember that Claude ran a test on Norway Mensa, and Claude 1 scored 64 on the IQ ranking. Claude 2 scored an 82 on the Mensa test. Claude 3. This is over the course of about a year or so, year and a half. So we've seen this. We understand it. There's now a site called trackingai.com or .org. You can just click the QR code there. I gave a talk on March 6th, and so I went to this website just to see where we were with the AI test. And you can see from here where we had the best of Anthropic's Claude got to 100. And by the way, remember that IQ scores, IQ tests are normalized, standardized to where the average human has an IQ of 100. So this was the first documented case of an AI performing better than the average human on an IQ test. Now, we can get into the discussions of, are we gaming the system? What does this really mean practically? But it's a measure, one measure of many that we can look at to see where the progress of AI is. So March 6th, this is a list of multiple AIs across the main players. You've got ChatGPT, Gemini, Anthropic's series. You've got Grok. You have Mistral in there. So there's several AI providers 6 weeks ago. Now, in 6 weeks, you can see that they've shifted meaningfully to the right. 130, by the way, is considered quote unquote genius. I don't know who applies these labels, but back in March 6th, nobody had achieved genius. In 6 weeks, we've seen many creeping up. So that, again, gives us a measure. It is not to say that these AIs are smarter than all humans in all ways. My point is we need metrics by which to measure the progress of AI, and this is one of them. Gives you food for thought. So what else is happening in the AI space? So about 3 or 4 weeks ago, Google figured out a way using 3 techniques to shrink AI. One of the challenges with the AI, as many of you know, AI is sucking up all of the memory in the world. You need lots of memory to put these very big models in and be able to process them. And so if you're a consumer just wanting to buy more memory for your computer, you're paying multiples, twice, 2.5 times as much for memory now, because these models take up so much space. Google figured out a way to compress the models without losing any effectiveness or accuracy. And the day they announced this, interestingly, the price of RAM, the price of memory dropped. And so this is an important milestone, because often right now, if you want to run the most advanced models, you have to have very expensive equipment, or you have to work for a university where you have access to that data or that infrastructure. But by reducing the size of the models but retaining its capabilities, now we see a step towards being able to run models locally on your computer, within secure infrastructure, etc. And there's a movement called, I'm not advocating for this or against it, but there's a movement called inference sovereignty, which is just the notion of being able to leverage these very powerful tools independently without oversight or monitoring by Big Brother Google. And so this is super important, that we're figuring out ways to reduce the size, reduce the technical demands of these models so that they're more approachable. Again, as some of you have heard me say before, I think AI is a terrible good. It can do bad things, but it can also do good things. It depends on the user's intent. This milestone will enable more powerful AI to be run by more people. It'll get it into the hands of more people. So that's another update. So we've done the IQ update, we've done the Google update. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about Project Glasswing, which is an interesting project. This project came about as a result of the continuing advance of AI's capability in the software coding space. So there are multiple companies who've joined this initiative. There's Amazon, Anthropic, Apple, Cisco, CrowdStrike, Google, the Linux Foundation, Microsoft, NVIDIA. So these are very significant players in the AI world. They banded together. They agreed that this initiative is important. Why did they do this? Well, directly from the text. They've discovered that AI models have reached a level of coding capability where they can surpass all but the most skilled humans at finding and exploiting software vulnerabilities. Anthropic tested its new model called Mythos and realized that it discovered thousands of high severity vulnerabilities in every major operating system that the creators of these systems were not aware of. And if you discover a vulnerability that has not been patched, you can use that for a variety of purposes, including nefarious purposes. So Project Glasswing is not just an attempt. These people choose their words carefully. This is an urgent attempt to put these capabilities to work for defensive purposes. So we're seeing AI become more powerful in its capabilities, and understanding how to use these capabilities and manage them, keep them in check, is going to become increasingly important. And that can be a theme for research in the medical sciences, in our academic space. Many are talking about a Manhattan Project moment for cybersecurity right now, that we need a massive investment in that space to ensure that we are protected from the capabilities that are coming out. All of that to say, we have the opportunity to continue to, as academics, as researchers, to continue to contribute to approaches that allow us to benefit from these tools while mitigating the risks. And so another theme along these lines, we are, most people agree that no AI should be an island unto itself. No AI should be running on its own, unfettered, unmonitored, particularly in the cases where that model, that technology is being used to make important decisions. It's being used to communicate important ideas. And so because no model should be an island unto itself, we're seeing the rise of orchestrators and harnesses. What do I mean by orchestrators or harnesses? So when we run a model, we know models can do things like hallucinate. They can get it wrong. They might blather on and keep going and not stop. You need some set of controls, some set of systems in place to ensure that the model continues to function as you would expect it to do. That's a harness. An orchestrator is similar, very related, and these two terms are evolving, but an orchestrator is simply an approach where you are managing multiple models and need to coordinate the work among them. And this is typically done within a harness. But we're seeing the complexity of the use of these models increase. We're not just talking about a single model anymore. You're not sitting at a prompt and just saying, hey, can you write my college essay for George Washington? You're now asking things like, hey, can you build a system that would allow me to query PubMed for these topics? I'd like you to review all of the abstracts and categorize them into these 7 categories. I'd like you to rank them according to this scientific ranking skill. And I'd like you to produce a report for me. You can start doing that with AI. That's not a single AI that does that. That's a series of AIs that do that together. And we'll talk a little bit more about that a little bit later. There are right now, this is a rapidly evolving space. And if you're toward the more technical end of the AI spectrum in research, these points are really important. I think understanding this at a high level for those who aren't technologists is also important. But there are multiple components, and again, these components are evolving, but we're sort of beginning to land and solidify on certain types of components. A control loop, we need error handling, we need context management, and I'll walk through each of these a little bit more. We need the tools that actually get work done, memory to recall what's going on, state management, all of those things. So if we start with the control loop, we need a process that overall is asking the question, are we making progress? How is this running? Are we doing the same thing over and over and over again? I was talking to a colleague recently who was building a tool to search PubMed. And he would start with one model that would pull the articles. He would have a second model that would extract the information from the model. And then he had a third model that would evaluate the extraction and make sure that it was good. The third model, if it wasn't sufficient, if he wasn't satisfied, it would feed it back to the second model to do again. Second model sends it to the third sends it back to the second, and you can get in an infinite loop. If you don't have a control loop, if you don't have some way of telling it, okay, we're done here, we need to stop, then you're going to run into problems, particularly when you're using multiple models. State management is really ensuring that you know what's going on currently in the model. Let's say we're in an infinite loop and we need to stop the model from running and restart it. Well, you don't want to lose all of your work. You want to store that current dynamic state and then restart and hopefully be able to complete the task. So understanding and be able to manage that state is super important. And deliberate tools to do that are important. Memory. This is important. So some of you may be aware that AI models can process a certain amount of information before they have to start dropping that information off in place of new knowledge. That's called a context window. And so if most AI models, some AI models have 4,096 token context window, very short, very quickly, the AI model is going to forget about the beginning of your work. With memory, with a storage of this information that the AI model can come back to, it could say, I knew there was something 2 weeks ago that relates to this. Let me go back and find it, and that will help me do my work. Concrete example of memory. This is a very simplistic example, but one that we built into a system for our notifiable condition detector. So we want to detect notifiable conditions. Many of them are in free text. It requires resource-intensive natural language processing capabilities that take a lot of time. It's slow, and sometimes it's inaccurate. So once you get the right answer, you want to keep that. So every time right now, if our notifiable condition detector sees the exact same test result that it's seen before and adjudicated, it doesn't run the natural language processor anymore. It looks into its memory, its list of prior inputs and outputs, and says, oh, I've seen this input before. Let me just use that output and move on. That way you haven't incurred the computational cost and you're using something that has been vetted previously. So memory can serve an important role in increasing that context window, and it can also serve an important role in speeding up tasks. Tools. This is a broad category. Tools can include running a command on your Windows machine, which raises significant security concerns. We are seeing AI harnesses, frameworks begin to use expanded tools beyond their capabilities within the model. And so you might see AI tools now are able to install and troubleshoot software. AI tools can be used to change your software configurations. They can be used to query, they can write software to query another system, like querying PubMed. So these are all tools that are expanding the functionality of what AI can do. And again, this raises significant questions about how we keep this safe and secure. Context management. We've talked a little bit about this. This is context management is something like state plus memory, but it ensures that the AI stays on topic and doesn't deviate from its task. Planning is simply, some of you might have heard of chain of thought prompting, where you prompted an AI by saying, I want you to do this task. I want you to research a task, and I want you to follow these steps, or I want you to research a task and I want you to develop an approach to achieving this task. It'll generate that approach. Then you tell it, okay, I approve of your approach. Now go and do the task. And planning relates to that phase of the AI helping to lay out the plan, the steps it takes to get a project done. Again, you can see all of these, context, planning, memory, are all methods to try to keep AI focused and improve the likelihood that they're going to perform the task successfully that you've given it. And then finally, another very big bucket is error handling. How do we deal with the errors? I've mentioned some errors like an infinite loop, deviation from the task at hand. What are the techniques and tools needed to identify and redirect AI back to its appropriate place? So those are the 7 elements that we're seeing being discussed. And again, this is a very active field of research right now. If any of you clinical researchers out there who have a clinical application that you'd like to solve, and you want to look at some of the elements of your harness and test different approaches, that's an attractive research question right now. It might not be an attractive research question in 6 months. But this is where we are with AI. An example of an orchestrator. A pharmaceutical group created a series of models, connected them together, and the models planned and synthesized insect repellent and created 3 they created 3 new catalysts that led to the discovery of a new chromophore, a new substance, all done by AI. Created the system, they call it ChemCro, and they have different agents in that. They have a supervisor, they have a literature reader, they have a theorist who has a good sense of the background, a coder, and an operator. All of these different AI models worked together within a harness using an orchestrator. Okay, so this is a real world example of how this is happening right now and where it's moving. Now let's talk. So that sort of ends my overview of what's been happening and where the world is going in AI from a high level. I'm trying to hit. I know that many of you are not computer scientists. You just want to be able to use AI. So let's talk now. Try to come up with a framing of the use of AI for researchers. And I don't just mean, how can I propose to use AI in a research project, test it, and get funding to do it? AI can be used across the entire life cycle of the work that we do. You know, we can start at, I use numbers, but there's really not a ranking of this or an ordering. It's just from left to right. So a topic research. You, as a computer scientist, you might study AI and its methods and its techniques and try to evolve and improve the actual core fundamental system. Research tools might be data extraction and de-identification tools that allow you to do your work, but aren't necessarily central to the research question core. Then you might have AI as an intervention. Now AI is moving into the hypotheses and the aims in terms of a central actor in trying to create a new outcome. And so you have AI as intervention. You can think of AI for preparation. I've already mentioned using AI to do literature reviews. AI can certainly help you to process lots of material. When you have many, well, I'll give you an example, and I'm going to try to do an example at the end of this, but I will often ask AI to perform a search on PubMed for areas of my research, record linkage, and pull any full text resources that they have and summarize them, and summarize what are the emerging themes. So I learned from record linkage that record linkage is moving from algorithm innovation to privacy preserving work. I knew that, but the fact that the AI could pick out that trending in a very particular research area that's sort of niche, tells me that it has the capability to look at trends. You could pull articles and ask AI to talk what are the gaps in the research right now. So the preparation. And then routine activity are the things that we do day to day as researchers, but everybody else does them too. So what are we doing? We're writing and managing emails, reduce administrative burden. Recently, we just passed April 15th, tax time. In preparation for that, I had to pull together a number of documents. And I asked AI to help me pull those documents. It did. Then I asked it to summarize the information in that document and put it in a spreadsheet. It did. It saved me about an hour, maybe over an hour of pulling many, many documents. So AI can be used for routine activity. So with that, I want to maybe go through a little bit more detail, but again, level one, studying the emergent properties of AI, looking at the methodologies that we can improve. And at IU, we have Big Red and Quartz, which are high performance computing resources available to IU personnel. And that can be used to fine tune models. It can be used to test larger models. That's available. You have to be aware, though, of what type of data can go on that. And right now, please somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Big Red is still not, you can't put PHI on Big Red. On Quartz, where I have an AI server, Quartz can be HIPAA compliant. I have a HIPAA compliant AI server where I could put protected health information if I wanted to. And so Quartz is a good place to do some of that work. Realms is an API, oh my gosh, programming interface. What's the A, Katie, please? API. Thank you, application. See, this is what happens when you get more and more gray hair. An application programming interface. So IU has obtained some of the super large models like Llama 3 and some of the GPT models that are available are super large. They're like half a terabyte in size. And so you need very big computing resources for that. Well, IU is providing access to these very large models through an API, through a programming call, which again can allow you and support you in this type of foundational research. Next, a tool in the research toolkit. So some examples, we have the Research Desktop Red, where we can run AI-driven analyses. You log on remotely. It's like a virtual computing space. It's kind of a cool service for a variety of reasons. Some of you should take a look at that if you haven't. RedCap AI, many of you are familiar with RedCap. RedCap is now integrating AI capabilities into its workflows so that you can perhaps make more sense, have a more default or automatic complex analysis of the data being entered into RedCap. So opportunities there. But we also think about these examples of data processing. So for example, AI can be and is being used to remove identifiers from protected health information or from clinical records where there's protected health information. And so that's another example of AI as a tool in your toolkit that may not necessarily be the focus of the research. Now, the computer scientists might do research on those tools and the informaticians. Another example, Katie Allen's in the room, using AI to extract social needs structured records. Again, this tool may be used to gather the data that you need to perform your research, and AI is beginning to enable that. So examples of AI as a tool in the toolkit, we can read full chart notes and extract different types of information out of it. Again, you need to have this data in a clearly secure environment that fits the security requirements of your data. So now we're getting to as a studied intervention. So I know that there are some on the School of Medicine campus who are very interested in studying chatbots and how they might be used to help improve patient knowledge, patient autonomy as an information resource, providing decision support. We also have, as another tool, as a studied intervention, I've mentioned, you all are probably sick of the notifiable condition detector now, but we use that. We are studying that tool as an intervention, being able to automatically identify and transmit notifiable diseases. As an example, again, IU resources that can support this, realms with the API and its large language models. Oh, you know what? I think Realms is PHI certified. Right. Yeah, so just to be clear, Big Red is not HIPAA certified. Realms is. So you have access to large language models through an API with IU. And then on courts, again, you have allocated server infrastructure for faculty lab initiatives. So here, the pattern is for research right now, the model has to be sort of protected from the public. It cannot be exposed to the world. Because if identifying information accidentally gets into a model, that information could be seen by someone else who has access to that model. And that's why for resources right now, we're protecting those models from the outside world, because that's not a fully understood space yet. But finding the technical resources locally to do this work is necessary for this type of work. I'm just going quickly through these classes of types of research. We've ambient listening, chart summarization, natural language query are all AI-enabled areas, subjects that are ripe for researching AI as a central topic. We've already heard about the notifiable condition detector creating its own model, testing various approaches to modeling that. Again, these are AI as a focus of research, which hopefully a lot of you will be exploring. The next one is AI to support research preparation. We have access to Google Notebook LM. Through IU, you can log into Google with your IU credentials and have access to resources. I'm going to talk about Notebook LM in a minute. ChatGPT EDU is also available, just like Google Gemini and associated tools are. And you can see that it has higher message limits for complex prep work. So now, support research preparation. Okay. Here's an example. I want to talk for a minute. I want to combine sort of so now we're talking about the orchestrated harnessed AI. There's a tool out there called OpenClaw. I am not encouraging anyone to download and install this on your work computer. In fact, I would encourage you not to, because it's known to have some security risks. But OpenClaw, as an example of a framework for orchestrating AI models, is an because it's becoming very popular for use. And someone has built a skill. So now the capabilities that you can build into a framework are called things like skills or capabilities. There is um, a skill for doing literature reviews built for this framework that is freely available, that allows you to do very complex literature reviews. Again, this is an example, but it exemplifies what's happening in this space. And the slide I'm showing you right now is absolutely an ad. I am not advocating for the organization that is showing this skill, but it is exemplary of what's happening in the space. Level 5, the AI for routine administrative activities. We have lots of resources there. We got Copilot, Gemini, ChatGPT. I tend to bounce around a little bit. Sometimes I'm a GPT fan, sometimes Google Gemini. I do not use Copilot much. Some of you may find it useful. So that's some of the stuff. I want to show you some examples here. So for routine work, when, we often in our Teams meetings will create a transcript. I don't even know, is this recorded? I can't tell. Yes, okay. So there will be a transcript from this presentation that can be cleaned up using a prompt like the one you see on the left. And if you want a summary of that transcript, there's a prompt on the right that I routinely use to summarize meetings and try to keep track of that. Then the next question becomes, I'm starting to generate all of these nice meeting summaries. How do you manage those? And I have an idea. So with that, I want to try something. I am going to can people see my screen or no? Yes? Awesome. Okay. All right. So let's go into Google Chrome. I'm going to try to go to Notebook LM. Notebook LM has a lot of good capabilities. Create a new notebook. Okay. So I can create a new notebook and I might want to search for resources or drop files. I might want to say Grannis referential. I know I'm spelling it wrong. Linkage. Let's see if I get it. Researching websites. This is too slow. Okay, I'm done. This is too slow. So let me tell you about Notebook LM. It allows you to put together lots and lots of documents into a notebook. Like let's say you want to do as I mentioned before, that literature review that you want summarized. If you want to manually do a literature review, pull down those documents, you can load them all into Notebook LM. And you might say, well, Shaun, I can add files to my prompts and most of my AI tools today. Well, how is this any different? Notebook LM allows you to put lots and lots, and like 50. If you have 50 documents you want in there, you can put it in there and query against it. Ask for evaluation summaries, assessments of those documents in a way that you cannot at a typical prompt text box. And so this is very, very powerful for if you want to learn about something or not, you can put lots of documents in here and have it analyze it. And it becomes very specific content. Let me see if I can go back to other, can I get back to other notebooks here? Let me see if I, what time is it? Here we go. Oh, that's right. Okay. anyways, I would encourage you to take a look at this. Load files, load resources into this. The last thing I will say, and then we'll see if you have any questions, is with Notebook LM, if you put resources in there and you want an overview of the Notebook LM, you can click create an audio file. This is a built-in function that you can do with any collection of resources. And it will create a podcast for you. I kid you not. It will create two people, usually a man and a woman, talking back and forth, just like a podcast. And they go through all of the concepts. I actually created the podcast of this presentation and listened to it last night. And they made some points like, oh, that's a really good point. I need to include that in my talk. So it's fascinating. And frankly, mind-blowing is a term that is used too frequently, I think. The capabilities that are emerging with AI, I think, are they're overwhelming in terms of what can be done. So anyways, with that, I'll stop, see if there's any, are you online that you can see? Okay, go ahead. No questions right now. So does this all seem like old hat? Not so much going on. This AI stuff is for the birds, or AI is going to take all of our jobs.
I have a question, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Sometimes when I use this Copilot or Gemini, I always encounter spelling errors. So is there a way to fix that kind of errors that, should be corrected?
So are the errors generated by you when you type, or are you saying that the AI is actually misspelling things?
Yeah, the AI is misspelling.
Oh, interesting. I've not seen that. You might be able to put into there's something called a system prompt with these AI tools where you can sort of give it some background information, often about yourself or how you want the AI to behave. If it's a small set of words that it's misspelling, you might be able to put in the system prompt to say, always spell this word this way. And that may correct it for you. Otherwise, I've not seen the problem before, so I'm not sure how else to solve it other than that, but others online may have ideas.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Gems. I have not used gems in Gemini. I've used, so do you want to talk about, so have you heard of Cursor, which is, it's an agent framework where you can create sort of specific functions. So I've written a literature review thing in Cursor to create this functionality. But do you have a specific positive experience about gems that you wanted to share, or negative experience?
Unfortunately, I have little experience with gems, so I think it's something I just heard about. It seems, sort of easy for newcomers. So
gems provide specific capabilities, and so if those capabilities are useful to you, then yeah. Other questions? Many people have built AI resources for PubMed. So PubMed has that, remember that API, the application programming interface, they've had that for years. What many people have done is they've built software that will interact with PubMed through the programming interface. And that's how most people, when I built my tool, I used the PubMed API. And by the way, I didn't have to know anything about the PubMed API. I told AI, there's this concept called vibe coding. I don't like the term, but essentially you tell AI what you want to program, it'll write it. You might have to debug. You have to know something about programming if you use that method, but it allows you to very quickly build programs. So I would just do some searching on AI tools to query PubMed, to analyze PubMed, to support PubMed analysis. And I have a feeling you're going to find many tools out there. So that's a great question. I haven't used Notebook LM for sensitive information. I've used it primarily for analyzing lots of PDF documents, publicly available documents for my writing and grantsmanship. But great point. I don't know the answer to that. I'm not a security expert. So yes, you at all times be aware of the information restrictions and requirements for the tools that you're using. Going once. Talk a little bit about Cursor. Yeah. Cursor is a tool that allows you to plug in multiple agents and there's pre-baked libraries that allow you to coordinate between agents, and there are plugins, interfaces to many, so if you want to have AI read your Gmail and prioritize it for you, or summarize emails, or even help you write emails in Gmail, it can do that. So it provides the tools necessary for different models to interact with other models and other resources. Again, if you query, Cursor tutorial, I often use the term for dummies. There was a book series called, and it always was for dummies, like Perl for Dummies. I often search for Cursor tutorial for dummies, and it usually gives me a good starting place.
Wonderful. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. All right. Well, why don't we leave it there? Thank you all for your time, and happy to continue the conversation in cyberspace.